I stopped saving money. But to a sudden change, yet I have been one of those individuals who has been encouraging you, if you have watched some of my videos, that if you are going to make any investment, first you need to take control of how you spend your resources, that is money, and also at least you need to have some extra cash which you are going to save. But suddenly I'm saying that I have stopped saving. So what changed? If you are interested in this kind of content, remember to subscribe, like, and also don't forget to share. I was doing some research, trying to find out if you are in debt, what is the best decision are you supposed to make? Should you continue paying debt, or first you need to invest and probably save? But after doing some of this research, here are the findings which made I as an individual to change my mind when it comes to saving or investing or paying debt. Now, on average, this is going to more specifically focus on the United States, but it is so applicable when it comes to different countries. There would be some minor changes, but at the end of the day, these things are almost similar. On average, credit cards charge around 22% in the United States of America, while money market fund, the interest which individuals can gain are roughly around 0.46%, which is less than 1%. At the same time, a certificate of deposit can earn you around 1.36% on average. Yet, the interest which you are going to pay on your credit card is around 22%, 28%. That's so much ridiculous. So it means even if the interest which you are going to gain from a certificate of deposit can't even compare to the interest which you are going to pay on your credit card. So that's why I came to this conclusion that it's so essential if you are in debt, more especially to the credit cards. It is so essential for you as an individual to focus more on paying your debt as compared to investing or saving. For example, if you focus on saving on stocks, on average, stocks have been having a return of around 12% to 8%. That's like the interest which you are going to pay on your credit card is two times the amount which you are going to gain on your stocks, which is absurd because at the end of the day, the amount which you are going to gain from your investment is going to be eaten away by the interest which you are going to pay on your credit cards. So what is the right steps are you supposed to follow as an individual? First of all, we need to recognize what led us to this misery, what led us to being in credit debt. So once we recognize some of the mistakes which we have made prior before having those credit cards, then we would be in a good position at least to eradicate these menace, at the same time not to repeat the same mistake. So the right procedure or the right kind of action which you are going to take in order to ensure you don't pay a lot of interest is you need to employ the Afarange method when it comes to paying your debt. And the concept of Afarange method is so simple. First of all, you will start paying the minimum amount on all the debts which you owe. Then you are going to pay if there is some extra cash on the highest interest debts. Once you clear that, then you move to the highest, which you will continue the process. And this is going to assist you to at least pay a minimum interest. This is not the main, this is somehow different from the snowball, because the snowball, the main aim is you to start paying the minimum interest on the minimum requirements on every debt, and then you start with the smallest debt. So there's kind of a difference there. Once you have cleared paying these minimum debts, the first thing before you do some of the savings, you need to set aside an emergency fund. Because if you don't have an emergency fund of around 3 to 6 months, then you are going to go back to the same mistake which you have already committed. If an emergency occurs, then you are likely going to borrow another money, which is also going to charge you an enormous interest, and then you are going to be stuck in this cycle of borrowing, then servicing an emergency, and then you go back to servicing these debts. And once an emergency occurs, then you also go back to the same level which you were. So it's so crucial for those individuals to at least ensure you have set an emergency fund of around 3 months to 6 months. This is going to at least assist you not to make the same mistakes which you have already committed. Then employ the Afarange method to pay the minimum amount required on every debt, and the remaining surplus you are supposed to pay on the highest interest rate. Now, if you are going to set those things aside, now what next? If you will somehow clear the debts which you owe, then we should go to the next step of at least saving enough resources which you are going to set aside in your investment portfolio. And as we have said, those individuals who are lucky enough to have an index fund, you should employ an index fund when it comes to your investment. Don't select individual stocks. If you are interested to select individual stocks, then you should at least allocate your a small amount to investing in individual stocks, and a chunk of your resources you should leave them in an index fund. And the advantages of index fund we have already shared. There is a minimum when it comes to the cost. You can't compare it to the average of what mutual funds do charge. So the the amount which is charged on an index fund on average is around 0.05%. When it comes to an index fund, not an index fund, but when it comes to a mutual fund, the averages are around 2% or 1.5%. So if you compound that amount over a long period of time, it's going to be extremely expensive. So that's why I changed my perception when it comes to paying credit versus debt. You should always balance between paying debt and also paying your credit card interest or the debts which you owe. At the same time, you need to set aside an emergency fund which is going to caution you when difficult times happen, because at the end of the day, those difficult times are going to happen whether you like it or not. It's not a matter of why is it going to happen, but when it's going to happen. So you need to set aside at least 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. At the same time, you need to realize what were the reasons why you found yourself in the mess. That is, why were you able to carry a chunk of debt? Once you realize the underlying conditions which led you to this situation, then you will be in a right position not to repeat the same mistake. Anyway, I would like your thoughts. Have you changed your mind when it comes to the investment, saving, and also paying debt? Will you focus on paying debt, or you are going to focus with investing? I would like your thoughts in the comment section. Remember, if you are interested in this kind of content, remember to subscribe, like, and also don't forget to share. See you in my next one.